What happens when an MMO or an online game shuts down? Nothing. That's it. It dies. The end. And it's awfully difficult for fans to keep playing it afterwards in most cases. Well, there's one group that's trying to stop this from happening. They're trying to preserve dead and abandoned online games. But it's not going to be easy.
The Museum of Art and Digital Entertainment, or MADE for short, is trying to change the laws around abandoned online games. Last year, MADE and several other preservation organisations filed requests to make abandoned online games like Star Wars Galaxies and City of Heroes exempt from the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, or DMCA. You see, in 2015, the US Copyright Office added exemptions to the DMCA, which would allow museums and archivists to preserve old games through various methods like emulation and jailbreaking. So offline games can be preserved in some way, and it's within the law to do that. Well, every 3 years the US Copyright Office hear arguments from the public, and now MADE are petitioning for exemptions to be made for the preservation of online games as well. MADE argue that, quote, although the current exemption does not cover it, preservation of online video games is now critical. Online games have become ubiquitous and are only growing in popularity. For example, an estimated 53% of gamers play multiplayer games at least once a week and spend on average 6 hours a week playing with others online. If MADE successfully argue their case, then we could see old MMOs like Star Wars Galaxies being legally brought back to life through community-run servers.
However, the ESA, the Entertainment Software Association, also known as basically the games industry, recently said if DMCA exemptions are made for online games, then it could result in substantial market harm. The ESA argues it would open up infringement on IP for commercial purposes. In other words, they reckon a group like MADE could keep servers running and charge players to use them. The ESA said despite MADE being a non-profit organisation, running an online game is seen as a commercial venture and something companies would generally charge for. Therefore, it could be seen as direct competition to the developers and publishers represented by the ESA. The ESA also argues that, quote, public performance and display of online games within a museum likewise is a commercial use. MADE charges an admission fee, $10 to play games all day. Under the authority summarised above, public performance and display of copyrighted works to generate entrance fee revenue is a commercial use, even if undertaken by a non-profit museum.
So the ESA is arguing because MADE charge an admission fee, it should count as unauthorised commercial use of IP. And because MADE would be replicating game servers to enable old games to be played, then it should count as copyright infringement. Despite the opposition from the ESA, MADE stand by their position. They want to preserve those old MMOs which are no longer online, so that future generations will be able to experience them for themselves.
This is kind of the ugly reality of the games industry when it comes to anything like this. It's all the legalese and the paperwork and the red tape and the technicalities stop cool stuff from happening. And I know that's an incredibly simplistic and boneheaded view of it. I can't help but feel that it is really annoying that because lawyers are going, well, technically this would be seen as competition. The game is dead. It maybe technically is, and it maybe technically would be seen as a competition, and someone making money off your precious IP, which you love so much that you have shut servers down for. You can't let them do that because in the way that capitalism works, you wouldn't be allowed to let that happen because you have to sue them, because then you'd be surrendering the rights to that IP and whatever. All that bollocks stops something like MADE preserving a game like Star Wars Galaxies. Some people want to play Star Wars Galaxies, but they can't because of this shit.
I mean, let's not make it all about Star Wars Galaxies. Although Star Wars Galaxies, I would say, if one deserves to be brought
anything
back,
like that, isn't it?
Star Wars Galaxies was awesome. Yeah. It was brilliant. It does a lot of things that the games these days just don't do. But that aside, the ESA, it makes sense for them to want to try and protect the business side of things. If people are paying MADE $10 to use servers and they're not paying for other games and playing other online services, then that's where the loss of revenue might come in. But whether it's in direct competition, whether these people would be paying otherwise for newer games, whereas they're playing Star Wars Galaxies instead, that's another question. For an organisation like MADE, who are essentially looking to preserve art because they're a museum, right? That's what museums do by definition. They're a non-profit. They recognise games as an art. They want to preserve that, not just in single-player games, which is legally able to do now, but in online games as well. Why should they be stopped? Because of greedy people like ESA and all the other businesses who think, oh, we might lose a couple of quid here and there. F*** off and let people play their games.
I've got more to say, but that was good.
So sorry, I always come too early. Don't I?
I do have to say though, I feel like that Made's position is probably a lot stronger than the ESA's, and I would say that because I agree with it, but I just think that their argument is much clearer. The thing is dead, the server is shut down, we can do this with offline games, this exemption already exists through the DMCA. We want to add online to it because it's just as important as offline games. We want to preserve these types of games, please can we do that? Yeah, and the ESA is just doing what they would do. They're just trying to protect the interests of the games industry because there's a whiff of them losing money. And losing the IP rights and whatever. I do think that they can get this to happen, and I think it will leads to some great things. It's so disappointing when a game's server's shut down and you just can't play it anymore. So hopefully they will sort this out and get it through.
Case made. Boom.
So what MMOs and old online games would you like to see revived and played completely legally and above board? What would you like to play? Let us know down in the comments below. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this every day. You can check out that video right there, right now if you want, and the link to Patreon if you want to support the channel. See you next time.